What is going on, you guys? Welcome to my full card breakdown for UFC 320 this weekend. We've got an amazing card top to bottom, maybe even the best fight card of the year, a hell of a lot better than the trash we had at UFC Perth last week. And speaking of last week, we have had an absolute abysmal past few weeks, one of the worst, if not the worst, betting month I've ever had in my life. I don't know what I did to piss off the UFC gods, but it has felt cursed the past few weeks. I don't know what is going on. Didn't do any videos last week, a lock of the week or a full card breakdown. Didn't trust a single fighter nearly enough to call them a lock. The card itself was just trash all around. I wasn't trying to do a full card breakdown. With the amount of hours and work that goes into making these videos, I need to be at least a week ahead of schedule from now on to make both a full card and a lock of the week. So that's what I did this week. I skipped this Perth card, dedicated all my time doing tape study for UFC 320, feel much better about it. Having this extra week allows me to be able to put in the research and the time to give you guys the quality of video and quality of picks that I'm looking to give you. I really like this week. I like my bets and my lock of the week much better. Hopefully taking that week off will let the universe realign. Hopefully got all the bad voodoo out. But enough talking, let's get into these fights. First fight of the night, we got Veronica Hardy versus Brogan Walker. Right off the bat, a pick that I'm very confident in. I think Veronica Hardy is better than Brogan Walker literally everywhere. She's a former Taekwondo champion, great kicks, extremely fast, has shown lots of improvements over the years. She isn't just UFC level, she's actually a very good fighter. Probably won't ever be champion, but a hell of a lot better than Brogan Walker. I really don't think Walker is UFC level. She's originally from Guam, which I can only imagine has a tiny MMA scene. She was training and fighting out of there for a long time. Now supposedly she lives and trains out of California. I don't really know how she got into the UFC to begin with, not to be mean, but she just doesn't have any boxing at all. Absolutely zero head movement, zero defense, has no idea what to do with her hands defensively. When she fights, you can tell she's trying to set up her boxing and trying to use her hands, but she just can't let it go because she doesn't trust it and she doesn't have the skill to. Got TKO'd by Juliana Miller, who I think is terrible. Lost to Yasmin Lucindo, who's good, but she was really hesitant and probably could have easily finished that fight if she had the desire to. I think Veronica Hardy is going to be better everywhere. I think she should handle her pretty easily. So I'm going to go with her by either a second or third round finish probably. Next fight, we got Ramiz Brahimaj versus Austin Vanderford. Not much to say about this fight. Austin Vanderford has one fight to work off of and we can't even watch the tape back because it's not available on UFC Fight Pass. All he did in that fight was just out-wrestled Nikolai Veretennikov. I don't think Veretennikov is good at all. Ramiz Brahimaj is much more experienced and has shown some decent performances lately, but if Court McGee and Themba Gorimbo are getting almost 11 minutes each of control time on you, I can only imagine Austin Vanderford can do the same. So I'm going to go with Vanderford to win this fight, probably by decision. Not confident in it at all. I do not think you should bet on somebody that is still this green in the sport, but Ramiz has shown that he struggles most against grapplers. Next fight, we got Punahele Soriano versus Nikolai Veretennikov. I love Punahele in this spot. I think he's much better than Nikolai. Coming down to 170 was the best decision he's ever made. He looks so much better, way better cardio. He's always hit super hard, but at welterweight, they really feel it. I always thought Punahele was really underrated. People say that he's inconsistent, and I completely disagree. I think he was just fighting savages at 185. Super heavy hands, beautiful heavy counters. In his first fight at 170, he showed how good his wrestling is. At 185, the guys were just too strong for him, even with his good wrestling. Stoltzfus was able to just ragdoll him, even with how good Punahele was looking up until that. The fight before that against Roman Kopylov was trying to strike with him too. Super tough and durable, eating a ton of body shots in that fight. Nikolai Veretennikov just isn't good. I really question if he is UFC level. On the Contender Series, got destroyed by Michael Morales. Not a bad loss, but then against Danny Barlow, he looked horrible. Super low output, timing was off, slow, the entries were ugly. Against Austin Vanderford, just got out-wrestled the entire fight. Francisco Prado realistically should be a lightweight, and he was fighting at welterweight, and Nikolai Veretennikov still went to a split decision with him. I think Punahele is going to be better everywhere, especially with how much better his gas tank looks at 170. I think he has the power and the timing to beat him and knock him out on the feet if he wants to, but I'll probably just out-wrestle Nikolai because that'll probably be his easiest path to victory. Regardless, I think Punahele should be better everywhere, so give me Punahele to win this, either by a late knockout or a grapple-heavy decision. Next fight on the card, we got Daniel Santos versus Ju Sang Yu. I am very excited for this fight. Usually I'm not this excited for a guy who's so new in the UFC like you is. Only has one fight against Jacare where he got a beautiful counter check left hook that put him out cold. Before that, really low level competition on the regional scene, but did look very dominant. Daniel Santos, on the other hand, clearly has the experience edge, and it's not just an experience edge, he is very skilled. Comes from the shoot-to-box gym, but doesn't fight like every other shoot-to-box guy. He's actually got pretty good head movement, much more technically sound boxing than a lot of guys that shoot-to-box, but he's still from shoot-to-box. He's always going to dye his hair blonde before a fight. He's always going to get rocked in a fight, and he's always going to be hard to put away. He's shown some good takedowns in his fights, but I don't think this fight's going to the ground. This is such a hard fight for me to call because it's almost like you have to pick Daniel Santos. He's shown how durable and tough he is. He's shown how good his striking is and the level of competition that he's beat and come back against. This is one of those fights where my head says one thing and my gut says the other. My head is telling me Daniel Santos is the obvious pick, but my gut is just telling me that he gets hurt too often in fights. I think Ju Sang Yu is a sniper on the feet. The timing and setup of his counters and his ability to do it off the back foot is not something you see every day, especially in a UFC debut. Like with how bad Santos was hurt against John Castaneda, I do not think Ju Sang Yu would let him off the hook like Castaneda did. It feels like the only right pick and the only logical pick is Daniel Santos. I'm gonna go for a leap of faith. I'm gonna go with Ju Sang Yu. I just have this feeling that he's gonna be able to clip Daniel Santos, and I don't think Daniel Santos is gonna be able to use that durability to survive. I think the only reason he was able to survive against guys like Castaneda is because they aren't as dangerous as Ju Sang Yu, but I would never bet on this fight. We have no clue if Ju Sang Yu is even durable or tough, or can even handle the striking or the skill level or the pressure from Daniel Santos. Whenever you're breaking down somebody that's as green as Ju Sang Yu, there are so many question marks, it's not worth betting on either side in my opinion. I'm going to ever so slightly lean Ju Sang Yu, my least confident pick on this card, but one of the fights that I'm most excited for by far. So give me Ju Sang Yu by TKO. Next fight, we got Chris Gutierrez versus Farid Basharat, two guys that I've never been high on. I've never seen a guy that has made it this far in the UFC as Chris Gutierrez, and he doesn't let his hands go at all. He'll go minutes and minutes at a time without ever letting his hands go or even thinking about it. He's been chasing that one spinning knockout he got for like 3.5 years. Is surprisingly tough and durable for how hesitant and scared he looks in there. When he actually lets his hands go, he looks good, he's fast, got good snap to his punches, but you can tell when he's trying to throw his hands and when he does throw them that he is scared shitless doing it. Farid Basharat looked really good in his last fight, good striking, good takedowns, really fast and moves around the cage very well. I'm still not very high on him. I think before his last fight, there were a lot of flaws and holes that you could see in his game. I'm going to pick him to win this fight just based off of the boxing, the movement. He's not scared to throw or eat punches like Chris Gutierrez is. The only threat from Chris Gutierrez in any fight is just the leg kicks. So give me Farid Basharat to win this fight, probably by decision. Very interested to see how Basharat does in this fight. He should look dominant, but I don't think he's going to, and I think it's going to be one of those wins that actually decreases his stock. Next fight, we got Edmen Shahbazyan versus Andre Muniz. The same breakdown with the past 5 Edmen Shahbazyan fights he's had. He should have no problem knocking this guy out, but the guy's a grappler with good jiu-jitsu, which means Edmen's probably going to get subbed. I'm still going to pick him in this fight. I do not see how he doesn't knock out an Andre Muniz. I will stay away from this fight. I have stayed away from Edmen Shahbazyan for years. So I'm going to go Edmen Shahbazyan by knockout, probably before the start of the 3rd round. And then we got Ataba Gutierrez versus Ozzy Diaz. Ataba Gutierrez is like a minus 1200 favorite, and rightfully so in my opinion. He hits so hard and has so much speed and technique and snap to his punches. Ngannou had that power, but he did not have that speed ever in his career, and he didn't have the technique until he started training at Extreme Couture. Ozzy Diaz shouldn't even be taking this fight realistically. I don't see how Gutierrez doesn't knock him out, so give me Gutierrez to win this fight by 1st round KO. Next fight, we got Abus Magomedov versus Joe Pyfer. I'm going to go with Joe Pyfer. He should get the knockout. I don't like how Abus was reacting to the power from Caio Borralho. Even though I think Caio Borralho is a much better fighter and striker overall, I think Joe Pyfer has a lot more raw power. So give me Joe Pyfer to win this fight by knockout. Next fight, we got Josh Emmett versus Youssef Zalal. I can't stand watching Youssef Zalal fight. Throws out a jab and a leg kick and just runs away the entire fight. has fought some pretty terrible competition, and then faced Calvin Kattar, who's very old and I don't want to say washed up, but definitely is not the same fighter he used to be. I think Josh Emmett not only is at a better point in his career than Kattar, I think he's more dangerous and has fought better competition recently. I'm going to go with Josh Emmett to win this fight by knockout. Maybe that's biased because I really want him to win. But seeing how Yusuf performed against a very old and hesitant Calvin Kattar and then almost getting finished in that third round, I think Josh Emmett just needs to press forward and chase him down, get him against the cage, and I think he should be able to land clean enough to knock him out. I really hope that happens, so I'm going to go with Emmett by knockout. Next fight, we got Yuri Prochazka versus Khalil Roundtree. More excited for this fight than I have been for a non-title fight or main event in a very, very long time. Yuri is one of those guys who seems like he was just born to fight. Between how entertaining he is, the heart and the toughness, how much power he generates, and how incredibly fast and explosive he is. He's a very hard guy to prepare for in the sense of finding someone to replicate his style in the gym, and he's very unpredictable while you're in the cage with him, but you know exactly what you're going to get when you fight him. And what I mean by that is you never have to worry about takedowns. He's always going to be switching stances, keeping his hands low, always moving his limbs a bunch to distract you. There's a few things that worry me for Yuri in this matchup. First is that a lot of the time he will get caught up headhunting when he fights. He's looking to use all that extra movement to distract you and draw you in so he can counter, where he uses that karate style and the massive power to always try and find that highlight reel knockout. Even though his style is incredibly entertaining, it's entirely dependent on his movement and being able to tap into that flow state. Even with his improved head movement, he still thrives in that chaos where he relies on his ability to eat punches and for you to not be able to eat his. That scares me when you're fighting guys as dangerous as Khalil Roundtree. People recognize how powerful and unpredictable Yuri is, but they don't with Khalil for some reason. He's got very high fight IQ. I think him and his team game plan very well based on who they're fighting. I think him and his team will study film and they'll see holes and they'll know where they can have success against Yuri, whereas Yuri has even talked himself about how he doesn't watch tape because samurais didn't get to watch tape. People say Khalil is low volume, but I disagree heavily. I think it's a lot more of a quality over quantity situation, and I think it's honestly genius. When he fights, he has no wasted movement, and he has a very unique style where it may only be 1 or 2 strikes at a time, but because of the power behind every shot and how he mixes up his strikes yet throws the same level of intensity behind everything, it becomes this extremely difficult style to deal with because none of his strikes are being set up. He's recognized how fast he is, and he's made the decision to save his energy and use his speed to land on guys, rather than having to throw out those meaningless punches to set up the actual power shots. So like for the overwhelming majority of fighters, even guys who have this kind of power, there's always some combination they throw out. Usually it's just a double jab or they just have some combination they've been practicing in the gym, but there's always wasted movement, which is wasted energy, and there's always some level of predictability to it. But with Khalil, you don't have any of that warning. Like he'll throw an overhand left and then a straight to the body and then kick your leg, and all of them have that same level of vicious power. And because of that unpredictability and the damage that each of the strikes carry, it makes him much harder to land on. It makes his opponents far more hesitant. It makes his feints 10 times more effective. I cannot express how excited I am for this fight. I mean, how could you not be? 2 of the toughest and most entertaining strikers we've ever seen. It feels like a Mortal Kombat fight or like a scene in a movie. I think Khalil can have a lot of success with that oblique stomp that he uses, and even if he chooses to make it chaotic, I can still see him winning while using his body shots, his kicks, his speed, while having enough power to make Yuri hesitant. But ultimately, I think he's going to come to this fight and immediately chop away at both of Yuri's calves every time he switches stances. That's going to minimize that wild movement and the explosive power as much as possible, and then using those incredibly fast overhands at first to get Yuri to back up and break up that rhythm of his, which is going to prevent him from being able to get into that flow state. I think Khalil is a lot more calculated and dangerous and a harder puzzle to solve than a lot of people think. So give me Khalil to win this fight by 3rd round TKO. I am so excited for this fight. We got the co-main event, Merab Dvalishvili versus Corey Sandhagen. It's honestly really hard to compare both fighters. The only person they've both fought is Umar, and even though it was back-to-back fights for Umar, I think Sandhagen fought a better version of him. Against Merab, it was clear that Umar won the first 2 rounds and then gassed out, and at the time, I just assumed it was Merab's pace and pressure. But then after the fight, in an interview that Islam did after he landed back in Russia, he talked about how Umar didn't have a full training camp with them in Dagestan. I'm going to try and find the the video and link it down below, but it makes it super hard to analyze Merab's fight against Umar because it's clear that Umar had a better gas tank when he fought Sandhagen, but Sandhagen doesn't have the pace and pressure that Merab has. The other factor that's really hard to predict is that even though Sandhagen did extremely well defending the wrestling against Umar, it's a completely different style of grappling compared to Merab. Umar is much more technical and crafty, while Merab uses his cardio to shoot a lot more takedowns and then relies on his strength to get you to the mat. He never worries about someone getting back up to their feet because you always have the cardio to get you back down, while Umar is always looking to maintain control once he has you down. Even though Merab is champ, Corey has fought in way more 5-round fights. I mean, the guy hasn't fought in a 3-round fight since February of 2021. He's always shown a great gas tank, super fast and great defensive movement. Both guys have shown insane chins in their career. I would say the over is safe in this fight, but Corey does such a good job of cutting you with elbows. And even though I think Merab's chin is good enough to not get knocked out, he does tend to get hit on the feet just because of how much smaller he is and how good the counter strikers he's facing are. For Merab, what separates him is obviously the cardio and how strong of a wrestler he is. He definitely won't be as good of a striker as Corey, but his boxing has gotten much better and he's not afraid to fight on the feet, which makes his opponents much more hesitant with their striking because you not only have to defend the strength and the timing of the takedowns, but you never know when they're coming. I feel like his striking style is what everyone thought DDP had, where it doesn't look the prettiest, but it's unorthodox, it's unpredictable, but it works, and it's much harder to land on him than it may seem. The way he moves around the cage reminds me of Alexander Gustafsson. Super light on his feet, never stops bouncing around, has kind of always been the smaller guy, so gotten used to being very reactive and getting out of the way of shots. I think both fighters have a lot of skills that can give them an edge in this fight. Even though I think this is a much closer fight than the odds have it, I am going to lean with Merab for a couple of reasons. First off, even though Corey has a lot of 5-round experience, he can be a slow starter at times, and against Merab, you pretty much have to win those first 2 rounds. Another thing is Merab's movement on the feet, I think is what Sean O'Malley struggled with the most. The way he bounces around and never stops moving, it's not just harder to hit him, but since his cardio is plenty good enough to do that the entire fight, you have to make the decision, are you going to risk gassing yourself out and chase after him the entire fight? Or do you let him come to you, which then allows him to completely control and dictate the fight? And then at the same time, you have to rely on your counter striking while still having to worry about defending takedown. Even though the wrestling style is much different and might be easier for Corey to defend, historically he has struggled the most with wrestlers. But I am going to go with Merab by a very close 48-47 decision. I think Sandhagen is going to struggle letting his hands go because he's going to be worried about the takedowns. And I'm worried about him having enough cardio to chase Merab down if he doesn't want to let Merab dictate the pace and pressure of this fight. So give me Merab to win this fight by decision. This should be a great fight. I'm very excited for it. And then finally, we got the main event, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. I've gotten even more excited about this fight after hearing the bad blood between them in the hotel last week. I cannot understand how anyone is betting Ankalaev at almost 3-1 odds after seeing their last fight. I'm a massive Pereira fan, so everything I say is obviously going to be taken as bias, but I really don't get how people are picking Ankalaev. Poatan was clearly not himself that night, just wasn't letting his hands go, was letting Magomed walk him down and dictate the middle of the cage. And then after the fight, everyone was arguing, was it because Poatan was sick or was it because he was frozen due to the takedown threat? I'm clearly on the side of it being because he was sick. He didn't say anything about it directly after the fight because he's a fucking gentleman and it would be looked at as making excuses. But there were rumors of him being extremely sick before that fight. I truly believe he just pushed his body way too far, not just that night against Magomed, but all of his fights in general. Before their fight, he defended his belt 3 times in the span of 7 months, holds a UFC record for it, was taking most of them on short notice and saving pay-per-views that had completely fallen apart. It will forever be one of my favorite times in the sport. To the day I die, I'll always remember when he accepted that rematch against Yuri. Only 2 months after knocking out Jamal Hill at UFC 300, He takes the fight on 2 weeks' notice while he was doing media on the other side of the world in Australia. I just remember how excited I got seeing that news online and then seeing the video of Poatan answering Dana White's phone call going, "Shama no Shama," when Dana called him to let him know if Yuri had accepted the fight. Hearing how Yuri accepted the fight while he was sitting in a dark room for 3 days with no food, and then Poatan goes out there and knocks him out twice, once for that night and once for everyone that said their first fight was an early stoppage. It will always go down as one of the greatest times in the sport, but I think he pushed himself just too far. Between being able to have such dominant wins on short notice, becoming the biggest star in the sport in a matter of months, all the media and meet and greets and traveling that comes with that, being able to fight a guy as good as Khalil on short notice while being sick, weather the storm that Khalil brought and still win. I think it all was just too much and maybe got to his head a little bit, not in like a cocky or arrogant way, but just assuming that you can take these fights at whatever health your body is at is a bad idea no matter how good you are, and I think all of that just caught up to him. And because of all that, I really can't see how anyone is picking Magomed. If Ankalaev came out in their fight and put a beating on Poatan, or even just put the same level of damage that Khalil did over the span of 5 rounds, I would totally understand the pick. But every single person out there that picked Ankalaev thought he was going to win because of his wrestling. Every argument leading up to that fight was that Jan Blachowicz was able to take Poatan down and control him, so Magomed can do the same. But Magomed went 0 for 12 on takedowns. So now you have people bragging after that fight about how he didn't even need to use the wrestling, even though it wasn't what any of them predicted, and it was clear that Pereira wasn't letting his hands go. Weird, but typical, it's the internet. But now you have people willing to pay almost 3-to-1 odds in the rematch. So you'll put your money at these odds on a guy who practically did no damage in their fight when Poatan looked the most off we've ever seen him. Ankalaev wasn't able to secure any takedowns. He eats leg kicks like he gets paid extra for them, and was the one backing Pereira up, which we've never seen before. So you're not only betting on Magomed to perform and do something that he had no success doing last time, but you're also completely relying on Poatan to not show up and let his hands go for the 2nd time in a row. He himself came out and said this week that he was only at 40% health the last time they fought, and that's probably not a lie considering he took the fight against Khalil sick as a dog. And all the bad blood that's come out with seeing how angry Poatan is at him, so he's going to have even more motivation. On top of that, it's a rematch, so he's going to be able to prepare far better. He proved to himself that he was able to defend every takedown, so if him being hesitant was because of that, it should be far less likely for that to happen again. To be confident and bet your money against someone as dangerous as Poatan over 5 rounds is delusional to begin with. And I think to do it after seeing their first fight is even crazier. I think Poatan pushed his body way too far. I think he was way too sick going into that fight, not to mention injuries and your body's own wear and tear when it can never fully recover after a fight because you're fighting that often. I think because of how sick he was, he probably had a horrible weight cut and knew his chin wasn't nearly as good. You could see in their fight, he was flinching very early in the fight, which is just not like him, but especially against a guy in Ankalaev who isn't known for his power. And it was so early in the fight, it was before he'd even felt Ankalaev's power. I don't think Poatan had any business taking that fight in the condition he was in. I think his past fights just made him feel invincible in a way. Even when he would start to back Magomed down, he wasn't throwing offense. And the second Ankalaev made any step forward, he was moving back without throwing any counters. Even if you're picking Magomed, how is it not clear as fucking day that it's either dog or pass in this situation? Even just from a value standpoint, you're not just getting the former champ, you're getting one of the most dominant and dangerous fighters we've seen at this price tag, coming into this fight healthy and pissed off at Ankalaev so he has extra motivation. Like, for the people betting on Ankalaev, like, what happens if he can't get the takedowns again in this fight? What happens if Poatan just lets his hands go like he's normally done in every other fight? What happens if he stands his ground and stalks Magomed like prey like he's done against everyone else? What if he isn't worried about his chin as much because he's had a better weight cut? What if he chews up his leg even more? What in their last fight did Magomed actually do that makes people so certain he will win this fight? The only thing from the last fight that we saw was that Poatan wasn't himself. Yet Magomed got no takedowns, only had Pereira in any sort of trouble at one moment in a 25-minute fight against the worst version of him we've ever seen. And you expect him to be able to manhandle a healthy, non-hesitant Poatan who can game plan much better because it's a rematch and he proved to himself that he can stuff all the takedowns? I think Pereira goes out there and immediately looks different. I don't think he lets Magomed back him down at all. I think he destroys his leg early, stalks him like prey, and I think he puts him out within 3 rounds. And I promise to you that is my unbiased opinion. I think after this fight, it's going to be looked at as absolute madness that you were able to get Poatan at plus 200 odds with all the circumstances surrounding their last fight. So give me Alex Pereira to flatline this Harry Potter goblin in 3 rounds. If you guys are still watching, thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you have any comments or suggestions, please let me know. I appreciate every one of you so much. It means the world to me. Hopefully we can get a bounce back win. It feels like a much better week. At the very least, should be an extremely entertaining card. I definitely need a win though. If you're new here, please subscribe, follow my socials, my TikTok, my Instagram. They're both just UFCharlesDoBronx, all lowercase. Thank you guys so much, and I will catch you in the next video.